Hello, Rams family! Welcome to Rams Latest, your daily source for everything in and out of the Rams house. I'm your host, Brady Petrik. Let's get into it. It's all systems go in Rams Nation as we head towards our first action of the 2026 season, with the Rams playing their first preseason game in Kansas City on Saturday. The Rams play the Chiefs during Week 13 of the regular season, so this will be a prime opportunity to scout a future opponent and start putting the pieces together to be able to beat them in December. So today we're going to break down all the latest news, moves, and tricks we can expect to see on both sides of the ball this Saturday, starting with a big update on the biggest position of all. It appears that the Rams have reversed course on their initial preseason quarterback plans. After word came out last week that the team was planning to lean on Ty Simpson as their primary QB during the preseason, a new plan of action has been announced. Per Nate Atkins of The Athletic, Stetson Bennett will now be starting at quarterback during Saturday's matchup against the Chiefs. Ty Simpson will still reportedly see some playtime during the game, but Bennett will be leading the charge. This is a curious development, as I had assumed that the Rams would keep Bennett on ice during the preseason for a couple reasons. First off, Bennett has been playing in the preseason for the Rams since 2023, so I imagine that there's very little left of his preseason game that the team hasn't seen already. Because of this, the early snaps are more valuable for Ty Simpson, as he needs much more practice and experience to get spun up to an NFL level of performance. The half-baked, half-speed play of the preseason is a perfect stepping stone to bridge the gap between practice and regular season snaps, so I figured that the Rams would be trying to maximize Simpson's playing time this August. I didn't expect it to be a total freeze-out for Bennett, as it makes sense for the backup to get some reps just to shake off the rust from the offseason, but I didn't expect to see him listed as the starter. We'll have to see if this is just a one-off roster move for Simpson's first preseason action, or if this carries across for the other two games as well. The second reason I didn't expect to see Bennett as a starter is his position as the designated backup. On the Rams' first unofficial depth chart that was released earlier this week, Bennett is listed as the number 2 cornerback behind Matthew Stafford. This was the assumption that everyone had made coming out of training camp, but now it's unofficially official. And with the admittedly wide gulf between Bennett and Simpson's capabilities at this moment, I don't think the Rams would want to risk an injury to their only viable backup by lining him up at the preseason. Again, a few snaps would be expected, but starting in the game, that seems like an unnecessary risk when the QB succession plan is as shaky as it is. I hope that Bennett takes the starting drive with a few first teamers to get them all warmed up, then head straight back to the bench. Saturday's preseason game will also be the first time that new offensive coordinator Nate Scheelhaase will be calling plays for the team. Scheelhaase joined the Rams staff in 2024 as a passing game coordinator under offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur, his first NFL job after a decade coaching college football. He worked with LaFleur and McVay to craft the Rams' aggressive air-heavy offense, as well as the now famous tight end deployments in 13 personnel. And Scheelhaase apparently knows the system well enough that McVay felt comfortable handing him the offensive coordinator job after LaFleur was hired away to be the Cardinals head coach earlier this offseason. Scheelhaase spoke during training camp about how he expects to continue the offensive development that he aided in last year. Said Scheelhaase, quote, 13 personnel was something that kind of evolved organically last season based on some of the circumstances, but certainly was a piece of our offense that created some cool advantages. And those guys did such a good job of having great ownership with it. Just their versatility, what they were able to do for us was huge. We're excited about those dudes that we have. Anytime you've got a group that's that versatile, you want to figure out ways to use them, and we'll certainly try to do that. End quote. Continuity is the name of the game here, as Scheelhaase enters his first coordinator job balancing two extremes. On the one hand, after the disappointment of last season and Matthew Stafford's big extension, as well as a last ride of sorts for Puka and Devontae's receiver combo this season, there are lofty expectations for where this offense will go in 2026. And Scheelhaase has big shoes to fill to make sure that the offense delivers at or above the level they were hitting last year. But on the other hand, the Rams offense hasn't looked this electric since the greatest show on turf, and the metrics back up the eye test. Scheelhaase's familiarity with the existing system, including how it developed over the past few years and what holes it served to paper over, means that the offense should be able to pick up right where it left off last year and continue innovating on the razor's edge without any loss of momentum due to a coaching transition. It's also worth remembering that Cliff Kingsbury was hired as the Rams' assistant head coach this offseason. The addition of another former head coach to the brain trust should help Scheelhaase manage the tall order of steering the hottest offense in the league by giving him an angel on his shoulder whose entire focus will be offensive efficacy. Sean McVay and the rest of the organization are smart enough to know that what they have works, and that fine-tuning is the key to get them to the big game rather than a complete overhaul. It's the kind of cool confidence that ends up carrying out of the coach's room, into the locker room, onto the field, and even into the stands. Even with how last season ended, there's no reason to panic. The Rams just need to run it back and keep as much in place from last year as possible. For that reason, I don't expect to see anything revolutionary from Scheelhaase during his first game as a play caller. If what we see on Saturday looks like the Rams offense we all know and love, then the Rams hit the jackpot with their newest OC. Now it's time to take a page out of the coach's book and start planning for what we'll see from the Chiefs when they line up against the Rams on Saturday afternoon. As much as we'd all love to see a rematch of the 54-51 game from all those years ago, I think we're smart enough to know that this preseason game is going to be a much more muted matchup. That being said, there are still some players with explosive potential on the Chiefs side of the ball. Maybe none more so than their new backup quarterback, who hasn't been a backup for very long. If you didn't know or had forgotten that Justin Fields is now the number 2 QB in Kansas City, I don't think anyone could blame you. In what was a historically volatile offseason, Fields' move to the Chiefs flew under the radar, probably since there's zero chance he'll ever unseat the number 1 guy. Mahomes is looking better every day as he comes back from an ACL injury that took him off the field at the end of last season, with increasing likelihood that he ends up taking the field in week 1. That was far from a guarantee when the Chiefs signed Justin Fields earlier this offseason, and in looking for a suitable replacement who could step in for a few games, it seems like they found the best option in the QB-hungry free agent landscape. Justin Fields has quietly been one of the most dangerous dual-threat quarterbacks over the last 5 years. This might not always bear out in the win totals, but his personal stats tell a very different story. He's averaged 49 rushing yards per game during his career, pulling those numbers together with 8 rushes per game for 6 yards apiece on average. He's been able to pull out big plays on scrambles and design runs alike, and even when he's only starting for half the season, like he did in Pittsburgh and New York, he's still good for a minimum of 4 rushing touchdowns per year. The Rams didn't have to face many true dual threat quarterbacks last year, and even when they did, they often weren't putting forward their most aggressive efforts on the ground. When they faced the Ravens in week 4, Lamar Jackson wasn't even on the field, and Cooper Rush didn't try to do a good impression of his run game. And the upset loss against the Panthers during the regular season, Bryce Young did all of his heroics with his arm and only notched 23 rushing yards. The only time the Rams were well and truly beaten by a rushing attack was the heartbreaking week 3 loss against the Eagles, when Jalen Hurts put together 40 rushing yards on 9 attempts, including a touchdown. This was far from a record-breaking performance, but that touchdown the Rams gave up to Hurts' legs ended up being the deciding factor in a game that was ultimately lost by a combination of special teams gaffes. The kicking game was abysmal that day, but if the Rams defense had stopped Hurts on the grounds, it wouldn't have been an issue. I'm interested to see if defensive coordinator Chris Shula has any tricks up his sleeve to bottle up a quarterback with run threat potential, and Justin Fields in the preseason is just about a perfect test case. He'll obviously be playing without his starters, and I'm sure that Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, and, oh yeah, Myles Garrett would be able to put a strong foot forward in stopping the run, but this will be a chance for Shula to work out the defensive positioning and coverage looks before he's able to slot in the big dogs. With Garrett now unofficially listed as an off-ball linebacker, I'm curious to see how much leeway Shula gives around the pocket, if he's going to send full-on blitz packages after Fields whenever he can, or if he'll opt for a bend-don't-break philosophy to keep a lid on explosive runs with the help of blanket coverage from the linebackers. As fun and helpful as it is to get a big sack, playing prevent defense to keep the quarterback from escaping the pocket for a sneaky touchdown may be the primary focus of this defense. After all, the sacks will come once the starters get on the field, so this would be a good chance to establish a floor for short yard coverage through scheme and positioning. If Fields is able to escape the pocket, I want to see who takes him down and how. Will it be a zone coverage situation where he gets surrounded and taken down by a group of guys? Or will the defensive scheme send one guy after him with the knowledge that when the big day comes, that one guy will be a stud like Myles Garrett? Will the secondary come down and get involved? And if so, how will that affect how they line up when they face mobile quarterbacks in the future? The Rams will be facing the Giants, the Bills, and the Commanders this season, who offer the trickiest matchups as far as dual threat quarterbacks. With the way that Dart, Allen, and Daniels are liable to escape for big runs, I have a feeling that the Rams will be focusing on the bend-don't-break technique in this game to work on containing game-tilting plays. But if they want to start the campaign of fear and send a message with a few big hits on a mobile quarterback during this game, I don't think that would be the worst use of resources at this point in the year. Moving on from the quarterback's arms or legs to his arm. Despite his record and, dare I say, unfairly earned reputation, Justin Fields is still a very competent game manager, and as such, his performance on Saturday should offer a comparable example of how the Chiefs receiving corps will look during the regular season. The Chiefs' 3 listed starting receivers are Rashee Rice, Xavier Smith, and Tyquan Thornton, and while it's anybody's guess how much we'll see any of these guys during this weekend's game, the placement of these 3 on top of the roster gives a pretty clear indication as to what Kansas City wants out of their receivers. It appears that the Chiefs are still chasing the specter of Tyreek Hill, as all these guys are speedy vertical threats who do the most damage downfield. Whether or not these specific players take the field at all during the game, I expect the Chiefs to spend a lot of time airing out the ball so they can get used to the timing and personnel packages required to make big plays for big gains. This is going to be a good test for the Rams secondary, even if it's just the second stringers. The starting corners got burned by top receivers time and time again last season, with Emmanuel Forbes in particular giving up some nasty catches on the outside in critical moments. With the much-needed additions of Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson this offseason, Forbes has been bumped down to backup duty, so he'll probably be on the field for a good chunk of this game. I want to see if he has improved at all since last season, and if he's able to offer shutdown coverage against the Chiefs' backups, let alone their starters if they see any playing time. Forbes has the elite play of McDuffie and Watson to compare himself to now on the practice field, and even beyond just taking cues from their game, the Rams have gone the extra mile to ensure that their entire cornerback unit can match the play of McDuffie in particular. Rams DB coach Jimmy Lake used to coach McDuffie on his college team at Washington, and when McDuffie first joined the team, he gushed about how much Lake helped him develop his game. Said McDuffie, quote, "He's like another father figure, another guy that I call family, another guy that's truly going to pour into this DB room, which I love. Coming from college, Coach Lake was somebody that taught me how to play corner, taught me how to see the football field from a coach's perspective, and I think he's going to add a lot of great things to this DB room that is young, that is hungry, that wants to get better. I always say that he's a perfectionist, and I think we need to have a coach that's a perfectionist, that's going to work on the details day in and day out. It's just going to make us get better and better over the long run," end quote. Obviously, McDuffie is a unique talent who's been shaped by a number of factors during his career, but I really like the idea of having his old college coach as the DB's coach. Lake has been with the Rams for a number of years in two separate stints, so the hire wasn't made for McDuffie's sake by any means, but having the guy who helped teach McDuffie in the building to check back in and sharpen up his skills while also coaching up the other DBs on the same techniques he taught McDuffie, that sounds like a pretty winning equation to me. If this unit is building off the instincts and technique that McDuffie uses, aided by Jimmy Lake's ability to coach up the others on these same traits, the Rams corners should know exactly what each other are capable of and what their first instincts will be. This kind of unified preparation puts everybody on the same page and can help the defense move together just a little bit faster, which will make all the difference against the elite playmakers they'll have to face this season. I expect this rising tide to lift all boats, and hopefully Forbes and the newly minted second string corner Josh Wallace will be able to show a higher caliber of play than we've seen out of them previously after training with Lake and McDuffie this offseason. And finally today, let's take a look at the newest piece of the Chiefs offensive puzzle, the running back. Kansas City hasn't exactly been known for their backfield in recent years. After the back-to-back highly drafted disappointments of Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Isaiah Pacheco, the Chiefs decided to hit the open market to find their first impactful running back since Kareem Hunt, who actually led the team in rushing yards just last year. Rather than trying to find a value add somewhere on the margins, the Chiefs went straight for the marquee name, adding Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker after he walked away from the Seahawks over a salary dispute. Walker was a thorn in the side of the Rams all throughout 2025, as they had to go against him 3 separate times and could never quite find a way to shut down his shifty east-west running style. He nabbed a touchdown in all 3 of his games against the Rams, and was especially deadly during the Week 16 game, where he had his highest yards per rush average of the season with 9.1, grabbing 100 yards on just 11 carries. The Rams were able to right the ship somewhat before their next meeting with the Seahawks, where they were able to knock down his per rush total to just 3.3 yards. But at that point, volume took over, and Walker rushed 19 times for 62 yards and a score. The Rams were able to contain Walker better than any other team in the playoffs, but it still wasn't enough. This Saturday will be a great opportunity for the Rams' run defense to check in with their progress from last season. While I expect Walker to get few, if any, touches in this game, he's unquestionably the number 1 back in Kansas City, and as such, the run game should be tailored to his strengths whether he's on the field or not. The Chiefs' number 2 back Emari Demercado is also spry and shifty as opposed to a heavy north-south thumper, so he should supply a similar showing to Walker, at least up until first contact. If the Rams are able to hold Demercado around 3 yards per carry mark like they did with Walker in the playoffs, I'll feel much more confident that the team has identified the issues with their run defense last season and made lasting changes. If Demercado or Walker or anyone else is able to slip away and get closer to that 9-yard per rush average, the Rams will still have a lot of work to do, and not much time to do it. The continuity of the defense, both in players and coaches, helps me believe that they'll be able to pick up where they left off last season. But testing that theory is exactly what the preseason is for. Well, even though it's technically a meaningless name on the score sheet, I think we all have plenty to look for and look forward to when the Rams finally take the field this Saturday. But for today, that's all we've got for Rams Latest. I'm Brady Petrik, and until next time, go Sheep.